All right, I'm calling to order the Board of Trustees meeting for the Village of Riverwoods. Just 1 minute, please. There we go. And we're meeting virtually tonight under exceptions to the Open Meetings Act on the basis of Governor Pritzker's executive orders concerning the COVID emergency. And my determination as village president that it is not practical or prudent to meet in person at this time. Accordingly, this meeting is being conducted virtually with board members participating through the Zoom platform. As a village official, I am present in the Village Hall during this meeting as required by the Open Meetings Act. Public comment may be emailed to the village at the web address shown in the agenda. We will not be using the chat function as it is not captured on audio for recording of the meeting. So with all that said, we'll have a roll call, please.
Trustee Clayton,
Here.
Trustee Dickin,
Here.
Trustee Eastman,
Here.
Trustee Haber,
Here.
Trustee Hollander,
Here.
Trustee Jamerson,
Here.
President Ford.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, with having said that, the first item of business is the approval of minutes of the May 17th meeting. Do I hear a motion?
So moved. Second.
Second, are there any comments or suggestions, additions, deletions? Hearing none and seeing none, may I have a roll call to approve the minutes, please?
Trustee Haber,
Aye.
Trustee Hollander,
Aye.
Trustee Jamerson,
Aye.
Trustee Clayton,
Aye.
Trustee Dickin,
Aye.
Trustee Eastman.
Aye.
Okay, the minutes are approved. Next item of business is the approval of bills. You have quite a list in your packet this time. We did not have a meeting earlier in June. So we've got 2 packets here. Do I hear a motion for approval of the bills as presented?
So moved. Second.
Okay, any questions? Trustee Jamerson? You're on mute.
I have one question. Stand by. I have one question in general. Well, actually, it's one question just in general, I guess. I realize there's 2 packets here because we didn't have a first meeting in June. But I'm wondering why it seems that we're taking a long time to pay bills. There's a lot of bills that are, for instance, on page 19 of the packet, which is listed page 2, which I think is the first packet of bills. Number 124 HBK water meter service. There's 2 bills there from April that would have been paid June 8th, but we didn't have a meeting on the 7th. And then consequently, because of that, they charge us a service charge. And that's not the only one. If you look down the list, there's got to be at least a dozen bills that are, there's one for Pettibone and Company for the police department citation books from January that didn't get paid, hasn't been paid yet. I'm curious as to why there is such a delay on some of these bills. I can't believe that they didn't send us a bill from January, and I find it even harder to believe that the chief would be sitting on it. The fire protection district bills from January, which I'm assuming are for plan review, haven't been paid yet. It appears that there's only been 1 service charge sent to us, but I'm just questioning why the accounting department seems to be taking so long to pay these bills. Do we have an answer for that?
Yes, we do. We've recently had an addition to the staff from Lauterberg and Amen, and he is cleaning up a lot of things that we have simply found And so we're bringing it slowly but surely. We're bringing it up to date. We're working on a faster method of bill approval. And there are 3 places that we approve bills, the department heads, which would be the chief, Russ Craley, and myself. And there has been quite a bit of cleanup, and you're absolutely right. But I feel like we're finally getting on a pace. We're finally bringing it forward.
Okay. The other question I have, so actually I have 2 questions, I'm sorry.
Now
The other question I had is there's ACH payments for Comcast in both reports,
Yes,
but then there's also Comcast bills in the reports that don't match, the prices don't, the dollar amounts don't match. So I'm curious as to why there are Comcast bills in both places,
all over the place.
ACHs, and, I mean,
No, fair question. We must have a dozen Comcast accounts if we have one. Each of the lift stations has a Comcast account. I believe that's true. And so there are lots of different Comcast accounts. Where we could put them on this clearinghouse kind of arrangement with auto pay, we've been able to do that. But in order to get them paid more quickly, we were having difficulty paying Comcast on time. Rick, this is like
paying everybody on time, it seems. I
Right.
mean,
this is like turning a battleship, and it shouldn't be. And
but we've hired
I'm
Lauterbach
aware of
and
that.
Damon to take care of this. And
I'm-
it seems like it's worse than it was when Susie was here. And Susie did what she did, and I don't think, I don't ever remember bills being 6 months old with Susie. So
Believe me, I understand what you're saying, and
we're paying Lauterbach and Damon a lot of money to
Yes.
supposedly be taking care of this, and it seems like it's not getting taken care of. So
your complaint is registered and heard, and I've been trying to take actions. We've got, as I say, we've got a new fella, David Schillenmuller, who has come on and has tried to, and has been cleaning things up.
and we're
that's the
not
best
getting
I can
charged more for that, are we?
No, we are not.
Okay.
No, and we'll talk later about other things. Henry Holland, Trustee
Yeah.
Hollander, please.
Item 111, which looks like it's on page 1. It's under Gewalt Hamilton.
Yeah.
And it may be my not understanding how the report is written. The second item on there is a charge for an invoice for 21,000 and change,
Mhm.
which is fine. I'm not questioning that. But then when I go over to see what the budgeted amount is and the year-to-date balance, if you have a charge of 21,000 and your budget at 10 and the year-to-date balance is 9, that doesn't seem to make sense to me. Why aren't we way over budget on this?
I don't.
Why is the balance still 9,000 to spend when the bill is 21 and we're on budget of 10?
I don't know. I will find out.
I
Trustee
think
Jamerson.
if I can answer Henry's question, I think that because I asked this question a long time ago, Henry, and the answer at that point was that the year-to-date balance does not include the bills that are on these lines. So that's
okay.
previous balance is what I was told a long time ago when I asked that very same question.
So
but-
next month it should be,
In a negative.
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you. Thank
I
you.
won't remember to look next month, but okay.
Yeah. No, we're working hard to try to not only clean up, but try to make the process a little bit easier to understand. But Trustee Jamerson's points are well taken. So with having said that, are there any other questions or comments, or may I ask you to approve the bills as they stand, please? Again, understand that there has been approvals on each one of them by the department heads.
I think there's a motion and a second already on the floor. So we
Okay,
can vote.
so time to vote. Is there anything else anybody wants to add here? Okay, roll call, please.
Trustee Hollander,
Aye.
trustee Jamerson,
Aye.
trustee Clayton,
Aye.
trustee Dickon,
Aye.
trustee Eastman,
Aye.
trustee Haber.
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion passes.
Next item of business, the Treasurer and Finance Committee report. Trustee Clayton, please.
The summary of revenue and expenses and cash balances are in the packet. We had a pretty good month in May. We wound up with 224,000 in operating income, which is way high compared to what the budget was, which is a reflection of the receipt of state income tax money and pretty much reduced expenditures in every category across the board. The end result of that is that we are now slightly ahead of budget for the year, which was 52,637, and now we're at operating income of 73,172. Both the water fund and the sewer fund are above targeted balances and are operating pretty much according to expectations. Our cash increased $139,299 in May for a total of $13,327,000. If there's any questions about that, I will take those now.
Trustee Jamerson.
I know that we talked at some point about the sewer fund and the reserve balance in that, and I don't remember honestly what if we decided anything as to what it should be, but I think that the original target was $2 million, which it's now at, and I know it's barely over that, and I'm sure there's other expenses that are going to be coming down the pipe. But did we decide we were going to talk about what the correct or what we want the reserve account amount to be? And if so, what that does to the extra charge we have been adding on to everybody's sewer bill? I'm that trustee, but I don't know that we haven't talked about that. So
No.
Actually, Rick, the target balance for the sewer fund is set right now at $1 million. The ball was really kind of in my court to come up with some kind of a review as to where we stand relative to future expectations, and it kind of got lost in the shuffle. So I will take that on and kind of get a report back to the board as to what I think we can do or should do with regard to the sewer fund.
okay, thank you very much.
Yep. Other things that are going on, just to bring you up to speed with regard to the audit, we expect to have the second board meeting in July. We expect to have the audit presented to the board. We hope to have the drafts of the audit by July 1st for the staff review. Part of what's held us up is the lingering specter of Miller Cooper, who has promised us a link to their work papers. And while they have responded to specific questions, has not provided said link, in spite of the fact that they requested a payment of a bill, which I think the board approved several meetings ago, in which we had paid them. So we're looking at options to figure out what to do about Miller Cooper. But in the meanwhile, we should be okay with regard to the audit, although we will have to file a 60-day extension. With regard to Thornton's, which the wire transfers went through today, we have some booking issues that we have to resolve. For some reason, we have a receivable in the general fund for the money that was lent to the TIF, but we have no note payable in the TIF fund. So I don't know how the auditors, Miller Cooper, missed that, but we're asking Selden Fox right now for advice on how to fix it and how to deal with the TIF cash and the call against the TIF cash should Thornton's meet some of their targets for a reduced price of the land. We're about to launch a project on a 5-year forecast update, which will provide the foundation for the budget. And those are really the main activities that are going on. We have a few other details like the water payment, water bill late payment policy and SSA accounting and so on and so forth. But those are the main projects currently going on in the finance department. That's my report.
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions for trustee Clayton? Okay, moving on. The Director of Community Services isn't with us tonight because as a mayor, his board meeting is tonight because of the holiday. You should know that we're moving forward with the hazardous tree letter and second notices going out on that. So we're kind of wrapping that up and we should have some second notices going out in the not too distant future. So past that, I'm not sure. I don't think he had anything else that was of urgency to report to you right now. So the consultants report, we'll start with the village attorney's report, please.
Okay, good evening. I saw Andy had his hand up. Did you?
Oh, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
I was
I'm
just
sorry, I
gonna
missed
ask,
it.
how many past due notices do we have, the second notices for the hazardous trees? Are there a handful or a lot, or do we have a sense? I mean,
I'm going by memory now from a spreadsheet that Urban Forest provided us, and I think there were about 40 to 50 properties. I think overall we achieved about 2/3 compliance,
that seems
Yeah,
pretty good to me,
which
actually.
is extraordinary by prior years,
Compared to
really
how much
extraordinary.
people used to blow that off, I think that's actually quite good.
Yeah, these were, and then, you know, so these are the cases of people who sort of flatly refused
Mhm.
and or so far have not complied. Then we have some other cases where, you know, inevitably we just had things returned. We couldn't figure out why. It turns out some of them were addressed to properties in the wrong place. They need to be readdressed. So there are maybe 10 properties that really have another sort of fresh start to comply that we'll have to kind of restart that process with. But there is, we'll have more, I can get somewhere among us all, we'll get together and compile that information. It was in a lengthy spreadsheet that we're just starting to digest.
Sure. I mean, how much time after the second notice do we envision giving people before we start whatever the administrative proceeding is? I mean, what's the thinking there?
The second notice is our invention. In fact, our ordinance requires one notice, 10-day notice. What we did is we gave everyone a lot of time and asked them to call Lucas and make arrangements. And that's how we think this year we ended up with such a high compliance rate. But everyone else who didn't comply had the same opportunity and didn't. So at this point, delivering actually a 10-day notice seems appropriate because they've had ample opportunity. And so at the end of the 10 days, if we have no contact with them, if they don't attempt to comply, our recommendation with the village prosecutor is to prepare citations and probably go through administrative court.
No, I think that makes sense. I mean, because for years people would, you know, there was lax enforcement of that. And I think they've had a chance and it's balanced and it shows that, you know, the woodlands, you know, are important to our village as well as, you know, them potentially being hazardous, right? The trees potentially being hazardous. So I think that's probably the right balance to strike.
Trustee Dickon.
A comment on this. So this hazardous tree survey was done last year, and with the oak decline that's kind of taking over, I'm assuming that there have been a number of new hazardous trees that were not previously included in the survey. Is the hazardous tree survey done annually, or is this how often do we do this?
It hasn't been done annually in the past. It's been done about every 2 to 3 years because in our village, it's such an undertaking to survey all the trees.
Sure.
You know, Urban Forest has been, Urban Forestry, get their name right one day. They, you know, they've been walking back and forth to the properties where there's been some non-compliance or where there've been issues or where they've been discussing with people. So I can ask, but I think in the course of sort of walking back and forth all the time, meeting with people, if they had noticed another real problem, I hope they would have brought it to our attention.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions on that topic? this point? Okay,
Now,
Counselor?
I can go back to the rest of my report,
Yes,
which wasn't about trees. I wanted to tell the board that we managed to close today on the sale of the property to GMX Thornton's, or at this point, NLA Riverwoods, which is a subsidiary of Net Leasing Alliance. And we got, it was, you know how closings are, they go on and on and on. We finally got the wire confirmation at 4:45, almost 5 o'clock today. I don't know if anyone on our team has had a chance to, could even pull up or retrieve the information, but we should have received a little over 1.5 million into the village account.
Yeah.
That included catching up with all of the legal and engineering fees and other consulting fees that were accrued for that site for some period of time. The purchase price was $1,445,000. So the $1,512,000 or so that came to the village included reimbursing the village for fees through May, I think. And also included for the now going forward, giving the village a $20,000 cash balance, which will hold. They don't, their intent is not to keep drawing down the balance. They think they'll just leave that balance with the village. And then as we incur additional consultant review fees and things, we'll bill them monthly. And they said they would just put it in their normal construction draw. They're very much hoping to try and break ground in about the third week or a little later in July. They're trying to get permits, final permits. And I'm sure they are going to race to try and get open before the end of the year to take as much advantage of the financial incentive that we agreed to as they can get. So that's where we are.
yay.
We closed. So that's that.
One step further.
Great news.
Are there any questions on that topic? Anything else for us this evening? Bruce, do you have anything else for us?
Oh, sorry.
Okay. Okay, let's move on to the engineer's report, please, Carissa.
Good evening. Just a couple updates. We met with the engineer for the Chudy subdivision, and they're looking to start moving forward with that. I know that talking with Bruce, there's been several iterations and fun discussions over several decades, but this actually looks like it might come to fruition. So somewhat good news. We met with Russ and I met with him today to go over preliminary plans. We'll be conducting the final review for Thornton's and probably going to give them a conditional approval to move forward. And then going to the road program, the annual road program this year.
Carissa, one moment, please. I think Trustee Clayton and Trustee Jamerson might have had questions for you on the earlier topic. Trustee Clayton.
Sorry, please excuse my ignorance, but I don't know what the subdivision thing is that you're talking about.
Sorry, on
Oh.
Duffy Lane, there's the two parcels. There's the Lincolnshire parcel that comes down to Duffy. That's the parcels just west of that. So I think it's about midpoint, Bruce.
Yeah, I mean, this is property that was large enough for 3 lots per our code, 3 normal R1 lots. But for many years, the owner had tried ways of, the board might remember, bringing in part of some property that's in Lincolnshire into Riverwoods to somehow come up with a 5-lot subdivision. Later, there were efforts to make a 4-lot subdivision, but at the end of the day, I think there is, I think it's all vacant at this point, and it's a large enough parcel to be divided into 3 lots with a complying cul-de-sac design. In fact, I think that the design that they're looking at, in fact, was one that Pat Glynn had kind of worked out some years ago and said, if you really want to just do it, why don't you do this? Because this would work. So it's a large enough parcel for 3 single-family lots.
And I apologize. I just assume that everyone knows more things than I do when it comes to this stuff. So I apologize, and I appreciate you backtracking to get everyone up to speed on it. Was there any other questions before I move forward, or that was the consensus one? Okay.
That was my question.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
So the annual road program, we're gonna send an email out on Monday to all the SSAs asking if they want to be included in this year's road program. We're gonna try to facilitate the same way Pat's been doing the last 10 years. We are gonna try to start it earlier. So our anticipated schedule is to email out on Monday to the SSAs, get responses back deadline by the 15th of July, go out and do our pavement assessment to get costs, and then go out to bid probably August 4th, open the end of August, and then start right after Labor Day. So that, I know the last couple of years has been really kind of shifting into October. You're really flirting with fate on that point. So Mother Nature more than anything else. So I'm trying to push it up closer to Labor Day so you don't run into that.
Trustee Jamerson and Trustee Hollander. Trustee Jamerson first. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I know I asked this question earlier about the road program combined with the SSAs and how because they're lumped together, we can't use the MFT fund. We couldn't use the MFT funds for our roads. We were taking the money out of our budget. I know we had a discussion about this, and I know that we're trying to save money up from the MFT funds for Saunders Road reconstruction. But I'm just wondering if I don't know how big our share of the road program is going to be this year, as opposed to the SSAs. But I think we did talk about being able to break it up if we need to, so that they could be paid out of different pots of money. Does anybody else remember that?
Yes, I remember that. Carissa, correct me, but I think this year we had a very small amount for the village roads.
I think we were like 30,000 or less. And I think last time we talked, we wanted to allocate more funds to the past. So there might be very, very minimal roadway improvements for the village this year.
Well, so then the question is, does Trustee Clayton know where we budgeted for the road repairs? Were we taking that out of our general funds, or were we going to take it out of the MFT funds?
This is a guess, but I'll say it almost certainly is coming out of the general fund, because the policy with regard to use of MFT funds has been, we're saving for Saunders Road, as you said, and we're paying snow plowing bills out of MFT. So those are the only two things that we've generally been using MFT. Obviously, if the board wants to use it for this year's road program, we can.
Okay, thanks.
Trustee Hollander, did you have a question?
Yeah, we always have trouble maintaining a current list of the SSAs and the contact people. It's never been perfect. So I just wanted to ask you, Carissa, that if we do, and maybe Katie will be helping me with this, if we do contact everybody, at least maybe if you could distribute, or I'd like a copy of the current contact list for the various SSAs. It needs to be probably updated every year. It's always a difficult process. It's volunteer, and some are active and some aren't. And some people are responsible and they don't even know they're responsible for it. So
Yeah, Henry, I think we started with your list.
well, it's definitely out of date.
So Katie and Bruce sent me over an Excel sheet what they had for the SSAs. So we're going to start with that. And then our staff is, obviously we'll reach out to whomever, if things get changed, whatever, we'll get that Excel sheet updated, and then cross our fingers. Ideally, we have all the information, and then we'll forward that out once we get that compiled.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions at this point? Or Carissa, would you like to move forward then, please?
Sure. I think just on an operations side real quick, we have about 20 meters left.
Yeah, 18, yeah.
Yeah, 18, 20, a handful with Discover and whatnot. So we're getting to the end.
We're at the end.
We're at the home stretch, hopefully.
And I shared with Trustee Clayton earlier that Mike Grinnell, who has been leading the charge on the water side, indicated that our water revenues might be increasing because we have better reads on from these meters. So a plus.
Other than that, that is the end of my report.
Are there any questions for our village engineer? Okay, seeing none, the ecologist report. I know Steve Zimmerman emailed trustee Eastman a little bit with all the consultations and so forth that he's been doing. And so he's still been active out there despite the fact he's had some serious back problems lately. So not COVID, but back problems. So Plan Commission report, Chairman Brightcoff isn't with us this evening. Attorney Hoover, are there any updates on the Plan Commission side? I don't believe they've met.
We have no pending land use discussions in front of the Plan Commission. But the board does know that Walters Kluwer has been discussing and thinking about what it could do with its site. And it seems from the kind of inquiries that we're getting that they will want to have a more active discussion with the village about possible reuses of that site if they decide to sell it. I mean, the expectation, I think we said before, is that it would not continue as office, or at least not entirely, not as a single office building, headquarters building, unless they get very lucky and somebody who's got a corporate headquarters wants 200,000 square feet of space. So that'll probably be a very interesting discussion at the village board and the Plan Commission level. We just don't have any further details at the moment, but it seems like it will be coming to us.
Are any questions at this point? Okay, moving on.
I have a quick question.
Oh, sure, trustee Haber.
Bruce, how many acres is that?
It's between 45 and 50. There's been a little bit lost to right of way. I don't know, Carissa, you looked at it with me the other day, and I think we said it was 48. Is that what we came up with?
Yeah, there's plus or minus a couple square feet.
But
Yeah.
buildable because there are wetlands on there. Doesn't that take it down into the 30 category someplace?
I think so. I think that there's probably 10 or 12 acres on the north side that are pretty much not buildable. But I mean, for FAR purposes, they would still count it. But in terms of where you could actually locate, buildings.
Is it big enough to actually contemplate having a small village area, like a downtown area on that site?
Concept that they mentioned to us was a type of mixed use, which would include combination of, if they could think of some kind of retail, independent units or 55 and over type apartment or housing. And they were looking for some other kinds of retail uses. They're thinking in terms of a mixed use development on that site as one of the strong contenders among others that they mentioned.
Okay, because that's probably one of the last opportunities we would have to ever think about any kind of a central business district, downtown area for the village. So it's at least something I think we should have our sights on, thinking about it.
Absolutely. Thank you. Chairman Gratitor, did the zoning board of appeals meet?
Nothing to report.
Again, pluses and minuses.
Yeah, and it is both pluses and minuses, but it's peaceful and I love it.
Police report, Chief, would you like to? You're on mute.
I don't have a report. I did not prepare a report with police activity. Today was my first day back in the office. I've been out with COVID for the last week, so I'm just trying to get caught up. But there's nothing of note to report.
Well, nothing that isn't on the agenda, right?
Yeah, I should have said that.
Yeah, there's a big issue on the agenda. Are there any questions for the chief right now? Okay. I have made my request to you for a board workshop under information and comments from the president. And it looks like people are, yes, in favor of a workshop, and it looks like it's weekday, possibly a weekday evening. So I'll try to shoot some dates out and, see which one is most popular for you all. So again, to discuss village administration generally and some positions in particular. I will send some information ahead of that workshop so that you're aware of certain descriptions and so on. Event planning. Our deputy
Is this
clerk
public? Is that a public meeting?
workshops, I believe, are.
Yes.
Event planning, our deputy village clerk has been active. Would you like to take over?
Certainly. So coming up on July 15th at 11:30, we're going to have a North Shore Line who played at cleanup day back again. And it's open to everyone. Bring your own chair. The bathrooms will be open because Village Hall will be open. And we hope to see a lot of residents out there. And then after that, August 20th, I am in partnership with the Riverwoods Preservation Council, specifically Randy Merrill, and we are planning, wait for it, a community garage sale. Do you have stuff? We want to sell it. You actually do the selling. If you're a resident, you price it. But this is an opportunity to get a lot of exposure. So hopefully items will move quickly, and we are gonna provide lunch to those people who are getting a table, and we're going to reach out to North Shore Line and hopefully have them back again for part of that event, which will be from 9 to 3. And that's all I have for this summer plans.
Trustee Dickon?
I have a suggestion for Katie. Perhaps consider expanding the garage sale to local artists and crafters who could have set up a table and sell their arts and crafts. So it's not just stuff that accumulates in the house that we're trying to get rid of, but things that people make. And this is also an opportunity for people, for the community to kind of get together and get to know some of the creative folks in the community.
That's a great idea. I'm going to bring it forward and share it with Randy, and we'll see if we can incorporate it.
Awesome.
Are there any other comments or questions, either for me or for our village clerk? Moving on, visitors wishing to address the board. We did have one email that was on point with what we have been discussing, had to do with paths. Katie, do you have a copy of that you'd like to read for us, please?
Certainly. And this comes from Thorngate residents Catherine and Russ Romanelli. And their question or comment was that they're asking the board to address the maintenance issue of the bike walking path on Riverwoods Road. The portion of the bike path on the east side of Riverwoods Road, north of Deerfield Road, that runs through Riverwoods is badly in need of repaving. There are also low-hanging tree branches, tall weeds that are encroaching on the path, and larger shrubs that obscure visibility, especially on areas of the path that has curves. All of these issues make for dangerous conditions for all who use the path. We would appreciate a response as to when this will be addressed, and ask that this area be maintained throughout the summer months.
Thank you. And we do have items under old business. We can talk about that again. Were there any other visitors wishing to address the board?
Nothing else was received.
Okay. We have one visitor with us, if he would like to address the board.
No, I'm sorry. I don't mean to be so anonymous and reclusive, but no, I have no comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Rich. Moving on to new business. The first item of new business is approval of agreement with the Metropolitan Alliance of Police, Chapter 330 for 2022 through 2024. This is our contract with our police department, and I will ask Attorney Huvard to briefly go over all 70 pages.
I can make a few comments, and Trustee Haber may want to provide an overview as well. I defer to him if he wants to. Okay.
I'm happy for you to do it.
Thought so.
The good news, well, first of all, we have an agreement. It's been ratified by the police union, MAP, as we call it. And so when the board approves it tonight, basically we'll put together the execution counterparts and sign it. They'll probably present their signed copies to us and we'll sign it and we'll have an agreement. So that's good news. The basic structure of the agreement we've had now through at least 2 different contract negotiations. This is probably the 3rd one. So the underlying contract is more or less the same. And when we get around to these negotiations every 3 or 4 years, sometimes we may start with a laundry list of things that are new, that are being, asked for as new things. But after those are winnowed down, we end up with, a couple of key things, mostly economic, that we work out. If the negotiation was a little bit strained this year, I would say that for all parties, the difficulty is that we were in a fast changing environment in terms of inflation. And so in the past where we tried to get an agreement that went for 4 years, nobody was comfortable with that. At times we even talked about getting an agreement for 2 years, because when you looked at what the actual wage amounts and the increases are, one side could point to evidence that there's a temporary blip, that when you price in fuel and gasoline and certain things, that's predicted to moderate later in the year. But even as we're having these discussions, the monthly announcements are coming out where each month the annualized rate of inflation was increasing. So I think all of the sides felt an imperative that, on the village side, we were trying to be fiscally good stewards and moderate increases that could be unwarranted if inflation does moderate. And on the other side, obviously, our officers were trying to make sure that their compensation kept up with the cost of living. So other topics that came and went, are just topics that come and go in terms of negotiations. There's a letter from our special counsel, Ted Clark, who represented the village in the union negotiations. I think was included in the packet, I believe.
Yes, it was.
And what Ted did very helpfully is just go through and summarize the changes. So everything in the underlying document stayed the same. And when you look at the changes that are summarized, some of them are, fairly non-material, minor, a spelling correction, an update on language in a couple of sections where, we took out dates in the old agreement that said starting on a certain date, this will happen. And now in the new agreement, we don't need to say that anymore. So some of those changes just went away. The main change, of course, is agreeing what the salaries will be for the next 3 years. All of these agreements, the salaries are retroactive back to January 1 of the year in which the agreement would take effect. So they'll be retroactive to January 1 of 2022. And the salary increases that were agreed to were 3.5% a year for each year of the contract term for the 3 years. We also agreed to a ratification bonus of $500 upon union ratification of the contract. The ratification bonus serves in one sense to increase the compensation, in another sense to moderate it, because it doesn't go into a number of other calculations that are based on salary. So again, it's a compromise by the parties in the spirit of trying to recognize everyone's interest here. I think the other some of the economic changes were very important to the officers as a matter of principle. Monetarily, they won't be, based on our prior experience to date, they shouldn't be too much. One of is called a field training officer pay. And I'm going to let the chief explain that. Officer in charge pay. Holidays, we ended up agreeing to add an additional holiday, 8-hour holiday. And many departments, have various kinds of longevity pay. We didn't want to follow in that footstep. And as a compromise, we ended up with a longevity-based floating holiday for officers who've been with us quite a long time. I think everything else is almost, self-explanatory. Chief, if you just want to explain what the field training officer pay and officer in charge pay is, maybe, because those are a little technical.
You're muted.
By the time we go to live meetings, I'll have the hang of this.
You're used to sitting across from me. That's, yeah.
Field training officer. So whenever we hire a new officer, we only hire certified officers with municipal experience from other departments, but they still have to do some training with one of our officers to learn how we do things here in Riverwoods, and if they're from another county, how we do things in Lake County. It's pretty typical for field training officers or FTOs to get some kind of stipend for the time that they spend training people. It's, you know, they move away from their normal routine and ride with somebody for a few months. Or in our case, they go. We have 3 field training officers right now, and they, depending on the schedule, you know, they could work with any one of them, and it's pretty seamless. And there's a schedule of that they're supposed to follow about topics that they're supposed to learn about, and then sign off on once they've mastered that topic. The field training officers keep track of all that and do all the paperwork. So we did agree, and again, it's similar to what other agencies are doing, that for every shift that they're acting as a field training officer, filling out the required paperwork, and they have to be a certified FTO. They're not, it can't be any officer showing them geography in town. That wouldn't count. It would have to be a certified FTO who's going over the outlined topics with them. And they'll be paid 1 hour of time and a half for each shift that they act as a field training officer. If there's no questions on that, I'll go to officer in charge. Officer in charge, we've essentially been doing this. So in the absence of a commander or a sergeant or myself, the senior full-time officer has always been in charge of the shift. What they've asked to do, and what many departments are doing, is they're compensating him for that. So we're only talking, as you can see this year, $1.50 for every hour they act as a officer in charge, and we'll be paying less of that once we finish our promotions, and we'll have a new sergeant and then a new commander. The current Sergeant Footsman, will be promoted to commander, and there'll be 3 of us again running the shifts, so there'll be fewer hours where there will be a need for officer in charge.
Are there any questions for the chief on those 2? Trustee Jamerson?
Well, I don't have any on those 2.
Go ahead.
I can ask, are we done with everything on that?
Sure. Just on the
Okay.
contract in general, on the top.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask the chief how, I know he budgeted this year knowing that this contract was going to be coming up, and I'm just curious as to if you've calculated the cost of the increases as opposed to what you budgeted.
Well, I wasn't expecting at that time when I prepared the budget last September to be doing a 3.5% raise, but I always try to allow a little more into the budget for exigent circumstances, such as a need for increased overtime, that sort of thing. And by my math, when we were doing this, where we are at this point in time, I don't expect to be over budget, or at least I don't expect you over budget by much by the end of the year.
Okay, thanks.
Are there any other questions?
I would just like to
Yes.
say that I know that negotiating with unions, because I do it also, is an arduous task, and I appreciate Trustee Haber and the chief and Bruce Huard doing that, because it is a lot of work. People don't realize how much time it takes and how difficult it is at times. So thank you all.
The mayor was involved also, by the way.
And the mayor.
To move forward with this, all we need is a motion to approve the contract as presented with the Metropolitan Alliance of Police. And if the motion's approved, then the contract is approved and appropriate officers of the village are authorized to execute it.
I'll
Do
make
I-
that motion.
Okay, is there a second?
Second,
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Trustee Jamerson,
Aye.
trustee Clayton,
aye.
trustee Dickon,
Aye.
trustee Eastman,
Aye.
trustee Haber,
Aye.
trustee Hollander.
All right,
Approval passes.
Okay. The next item on here is probably a little bit ahead, a little bit ahead of the game, but I want to tell you where I'm going. I would like to continue discussions with Gewalt Hamilton to take over our utility billing services and move that from Lauterbach and Amen to Gewalt Hamilton. I've asked Carissa for a conservative estimate on what that would, on what that fee would be. There are a couple of reasons that I've decided to take a look at this. One of which was that Gewalt Hamilton does end up answering a lot of our residents' calls on utility billing. And they do a lot of the actual work going out and checking valves and checking meters and all that other kind of thing. So they have intimate knowledge of our water system and the utility billing cycle. Secondly, the transition to the new meters is almost complete. The transition to the new software service, BSNA. I'm of the understanding that the current member of the Lauterberg and Amen team who does the utility billing service is not familiar with that particular software, but that Gewalt Hamilton is. And so that coupled with the fact that we have had to rely on a member, get a member of the chief staff who comes to Village Hall a couple days a week to supplement us in terms of answering resident inquiries. So I thought it might be kind of a neater package to tie it all up with Gewalt Hamilton, who has experience with the software, who knows the system intimately, and who actually has a practice that does utility billing for other municipal clients. So I am exploring that. I have a call with Lauterberg and Amen tomorrow to discuss exactly that and how their fee would change. There are certain notices that we do have to give them. And it's working out the details in terms of how much it would, I'm expecting a neutral frankly, at worst, a neutral impact to the cost of utility billing services. So again, this is probably a little ahead of the game, but I did want you to know where I was going. And if there are any questions or comments about that, I would appreciate that as I collect more information. Any questions, any comments? I will be coming back to you with more detail and something that you can actually react to. So moving on then, if there are no other comments on that, moving on, old business. I have kept the change order on BSNA on the old business today. I understand that Lauterberg and Amen finally got a response from BSNA, and the original amount that we had come to you with was $5,960. That included $1,000 roughly for travel and $3,000 roughly for training. The travel expense has been taken off, and while we were not given a specific number for training, instead of on-site training, which is what was quoted, it would be remote training, which would be substantially less. So that brings the total down to something under $4,000. I don't have an exact number for you, but I think we do really need to move forward with this. It is under my $5,000 spending limit. And I would like to just get this on their docket so we don't miss the opportunity to add electronic timesheets, which could be very beneficial, especially to our police department. Are there any questions or comments on that?
Well, since it's on the agenda, do you want a motion to approve it not to exceed $4,500 or something like that, or just?
If the trustees are comfortable with that, I would like that. Otherwise, it's under my spending limit. I could do it. Trustee Haber?
I think one of the additional questions that trustee Jamerson may have raised, or maybe I raised it, I'm not even sure who did it, but was whether or not, or why was this not included in the original proposal? And I don't know whether we ever got a definitive response on that.
It was our impression that it should have been, because we talked about that with them directly. However, it was not included, so it was an oversight.
That's going to cost, an oversight that's going to cost us $5,000.
It might, no, it's not gonna cost you $5,000.
$4,000.
It might have been wrapped into the other stuff. You still would have, there's a baseline ad timesheets for $1,100. And then the hosting fee for another 100 and project management for $750. So those pieces would likely still have been there. It's the other travel and training pieces that should not have been. One of them shouldn't have been there. The other should have been not as high.
Okay, thank you.
Are the trustees comfortable with the motion? If so, can I have one?
I'll move.
Not to exceed $4,500.
$4,500.
$4,500. Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second it just so we can call the question.
Okay. If you say no, I'm screwed, you know. Okay, go ahead.
Well, you're not really,
All right.
you can do it on your own. You don't need approval.
Well, that's, I was saying, if you're comfortable, you can make a motion if you'd rather do that. Otherwise, go with, you can understand my spending limit.
Well, I mean, here's the question I have for Bruce. If the
Okay.
board votes no,
Yeah, where am I?
where does that leave the mayor? Are we, if the board is uncomfortable with it, but the mayor and her executive function decides that this is something she needs to do.
Yeah.
Then
I think that the mayor would have to observe what the board had decided if it voted not to do it.
then can I recall my second?
I'll withdraw my motion.
And I'll withdraw my second.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Last item is, I put this on old business so that we would not lose track of it. And this is really a status of the bids and and planning for the paths on Village Hall, Deerfield Road and Riverwoods Road. So I'm going to ask Carissa to update us on those items.
Okay, so for the Village Hall path that's currently out to bid, the board expressed a longer bid time to allow bidders ample room to come in with an appropriate bid. So the bids went out June 14th and they will be open July 12th. So just a day or two shy of the 30-day month cycle. It is slated to start August 1st and completion done in September. So that's the Village Hall one that's currently out. Deerfield Road, we discussed doing a base bid of just completely removing the paths and just restoring it back to grass vegetation. The alternate one would be a limestone screening. And after further discussions and pondering of potential other solutions for the pathways, I'm raising the potential of putting a second alternate in there to just do an HMA overlay. So what the contractor would do is they would come in, clean out all the cracks, get all the growth out of there. There's a special IDOT sand fill that they fill the cracks in and then they would overlay it. We've actually done this for a couple of our other municipalities after discussing with some of my colleagues on some options to bring to the village for this situation. And I think it's a potential ideal solution that you would maintain your HMA pathways for a relatively minimal cost because you're not removing the old one. And this really is just a Band-Aid. This will last you the next 2 to 3 years until they blow everything up for the Deerfield Road expansion.
Trustee Jamerson,
When you say overlay, do you mean repaving, just putting new blacktop on top of the old? Okay.
Correct. Mhm.
trustee Hollander,
Yeah, I have some information which may inform whatever decision we make. I've been in contact with the county regarding Deerfield Road project. I'll make some other comments at the end of the meeting tonight. But as it relates to Deerfield Road, the Deerfield Road project has now been delayed another year. The new target date is beginning in 2025, which is a year later than we expected. And I mention that because our original thinking was, why are we going to put this down if it's only going to be in there for a year, year and a half? But that now has increased at the minimum of 2025. So it makes whatever we do on Deerfield Road probably less temporary than what we had originally thought at our last meeting.
And the reason why for the alternates, it doesn't really cost any more money. It's just us putting in quantities. It gives you guys the opportunity to see all the options cost wise and then make a decision from there. So at least you have the cost up front to vet out what, again, now with the new timeline, the potentials, and then make a sound decision from there, what would be best for the village. So with that, so there'll be the base bid and the two alternates. The only slight holdup right now is we're submitting plans to the DOT. Obviously in their right of way, we need their approval, but I've had several conversations with Betsy there, who's the director of permits. She has given me their details for limestone screening paths and for this overlay one. That's straightforward. There's nothing really out of the ordinary for that detail. And so basically she's not even requiring plans, topo or anything. She's been really easy to work with. So we're submitting an aerial with station limits, our proposed cross section of the proposed improvements we would be doing. And that's what they're reviewing. So it's actually, that's really a good win for the county that they're not requiring anything additional besides just a quick aerial with some stationing. So we're submitting that to them this week. And our tentative schedule is to go out to bid July 7th and open on the 21st. So that's a 3-week bid process. Construction to start August 1st and then be done by Labor Day. So that's the current schedule for the Deerfield Road. And again, the only reason why there's a little bit of a push for the bid availability for July 7th is just the interaction with the county to give them their 10 days in case they come back with anything major. But again, that's why I've reached out to Betsy and had several conversations to kind of vet out those comments.
trustee Haber,
Larissa, I think you said the bid would go out the 7th and come back the 21st, which would be a 2-week,
Is it
not a
2 weeks?
3-week. And that might be too short.
No, that's fine. We can push it to the 28th because then that gives us the board meeting on August 2nd for approval. And then they can start then the following week. It's really not going to impact too much. If we give them a month to do the work, that's really what it should be.
Okay, good.
So I'll update that. Thank you for bringing that up.
okay, are there any other questions on Deerfield Road right now? Okay, the next is the Riverwoods.
Right. Sorry. So Riverwoods, that's just the typical HMA R&R that we discussed. So we'll take out the pavement, doing the aggregate sub-base improvements and then put the pavement back. That one also will require submittal to DOT, but that one's straightforward since it's just a maintenance R&R. So we'll probably submit that shortly after we get Deerfield rolling.
Do we know who did the Lincolnshire paths?
We mean the contractor? I'm assuming you know the contract. I can call Wally and ask him. I have a feeling that was either Chicagoland or I forgot who else was in Lincolnshire when they did it, but I'll follow up. I'll ask Wally over at
I think it would be good to see if they would bid on our paths because they did, it's seemingly a nice job. But it looks, at least anecdotally.
Right, and a side note, with all of our bids, we go out, even including the Village Hall paths, We go out for 3 to 4 days. We check to see who's picked up because we can monitor that on our site. And then if we see that there is low attendance onto it, we physically start emailing out. We have an ongoing list in our company of, if it's HMA, these are the guys to contact. If it's concrete, these are the guys to contact. So we do actively reach out to contractors that we have recommended previously to let them know via a specific email to them, not just a mass email that, hey, this bid is out, if you want to bid it. So, but I will follow up with Wally to make sure to ask who did the Lincolnshire paths. And so what we tentatively have for a schedule is to go out to bid July 28th. Again, we kind of pushed Riverwoods back because that wasn't the priority at that point. Bid opening August 18th. And then that's a 2-week. We can always push that back another week and then start construction after Labor Day and be done in October. So it almost kind of followed the roadway program this year with construction schedule.
Are there any questions for our village engineer on the paths? Okay, we should be expecting some good stuff coming back, I hope. Maybe get these things done.
The only caveat I'm going to put out there is that potential Union Strike 150, which are the quarry excavators. And so right now there's some aggregate that you can't find. Specifically, it's with your synthetic turf fields, but we've had 5 projects that have had to shut down because they just can't get aggregate anywhere. And the only thing it could roll into is obviously aggregate is in asphalt and concrete. So we're being very active in paying attention to pricing and what's going on with it, just for that potential. So I did just want to bring that up since these projects do involve aggregates, that there is a potential
In-person meeting.
I agree.
that it could impact either a cost or just getting the material.
Trustee Haber,
Is someone going to respond to the Thorngate constituent who
I did.
asked the question? Okay, just want to make sure that.
And the response was, we had our landscaper go out and take a look at it this weekend and cut, to maintain it and cut back those bushes and things.
But maybe even more to let them know that there's a plan in place to go out to bid to do the repairs, et cetera.
Yes, I relayed that. Are there any other questions?
Just blew me away, that's for sure.
Hello? Okay, if no other questions for our village engineer on that topic, we'll move ahead to, we have no reason to go into executive session. So comments from the board. I think Trustee Hollander had some comments he wanted to share with us.
Deerfield Road back to 2025.
From Patricia Anderson, we're getting some, we
Yeah,
need to be muted. Just let the board know about a couple of things. I mentioned the Deerfield Road project being pushed back a year. One other piece of information which I thought was beneficial is that the property impacts that they expected were in the 60s. 60 different property were going to be impacted. That's been decreased down to the 30s now. They're revising where they're going to be doing it. I think that's great. Also, they're expecting some design approval this month. I've written them when design approval is approved, then they go out to begin the land acquisition. And I've asked them to give us a heads up so that we can discuss this with them before they go out for land acquisition, because I'm sure our residents will be querying us and having comments and concerns. So I'd like at least to be educated before they go out with some letters and stuff like that. Second, the Sanders Road, as it was related to the MFT fund, has been delayed another year. I guess federal funding is going to be delayed till 1 more year. They asked if we said it was okay, and I said it was fine. So that'll happen maybe at the same time Deerfield Road, and maybe that's going to be pushed back. I don't know. And the third item that I just wanted to mention is that we used to have a program where we would have our wells measured so that we would know the level of them over 2 or 3 or 4 times a year. That program is going to be restarted and we'll publicize it in the Village Voice. We've had lots of rain, so I don't expect to have any problem, but it is nice to know, since they have the villages on wells, as to where the levels are on a periodic basis. That's it.
Any question? Yeah, Trustee Jamerson?
Oh, I don't have a question, but I do
Oh.
have something for the rest.
Oh,
of
good. Okay.
Unless there's questions for Henry. Okay.
That's-
I just want to let the board know, and you know, the fire department, when I first became a trustee, the fire department used to come to every meeting, a representative from the Fire Protection District, Riverwoods, Lincolnshire. Then that stopped because for whatever reason, but I just want, and I don't know how to get this to them, but one of our neighbors passed away on Father's Day. And he was a very, very long time resident of Riverwoods. His parents lived here. He bought his parents' house. He lived here. And my guess is he's in his 80s. But I talked to his widow yesterday, and she told me she just wanted to pass on how wonderful the fire department personnel were to her when they came to her house. I don't know if the police responded or not. She didn't mention that, but so I just think it's important for everybody to know that our fire department does a lot of things. And one of them is being compassionate in times like that. So if we can somehow pass it on to the Fire Protection District, I think it's good for them to know that. The
Absolutely.
resident specifically asked me to mention that, so.
Can we know the name of the resident?
Rod Mueller. He lived on Juneberry. So
Rick, you know when it happened? I'll talk to the chief and let him know about it.
it was on Father's Day of all days. So,
Okay.
Oh, that's
thank you.
horrible. Well, let us know if there's anything else we can do, please. There any other comments from the board? Any questions about anything that's happened? Before we adjourn, I would just want to know if we're going to have a quorum on July 5. Is anybody planning not to be here? Not to be available? I will not know if we're allowed to go Zoom until the 25th. The current order expires the 25th of June. So I won't know if we're in person or Zoom until, well, 25th is this Saturday.
well, I was kind of planning on shooting off any leftover fireworks on that night, but I guess I can wait.
Well, you could come here and do it.
There you go.
Yeah, no, and on the 25th, I'll be conducting my first marriage ceremony. So just thought I'd let you know, the mayor has the authority to do that. So bad luck for my nephew. So are there anything else from the board? We'll be in touch on how the meeting is next to be conducted on July 5. So with saying that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
No discussion, roll call, please.
Trustee Clayton,
Aye.
trustee Dickon,
Aye.
trustee Eastman,
Aye.
trustee Haber,
Aye.
trustee Hollander,
Aye.
trustee Jamerson.
Aye.
Well, thank you all very much and be safe.
Everyone.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Aye.
Good night.